Honourable Member for Saskatoon-Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it gives me great opportunity to speak today on Bill C-2. Spend, spend, spend is what this government has as their agenda. And spend they did, Mr. Speaker. The last 94 days since we last sat in this House, this government has doled out roughly $8 billion. Canadians coast to coast to coast are realizing that this government's agenda will send our country into massive debt. Debt comes with a cost, and it appears that the well-educated and those with high-paying jobs will pay the brunt since this budget announcement in March. In a poll just released earlier this month, nearly half of all Canadians are draining their bank accounts between pay periods for each 2 weeks. Many are adding to their debt levels, which, as we know, are very dangerous. 4 in 10 Canadians, Mr. Speaker, say they spend it all between pay periods. So even a small increase in interest rate would spell disaster in this country for many of our Canadian families. We have enjoyed record levels of low interest rates, but as you all know, sooner or later, it will go up. We are prepared for this? Well, obviously not. Live and spend for today, but tomorrow brings paybacks, and governments should always be aware of that. We have talked long and hard about not spending our children's and our grandchildren's future in this place. Then why are we doing it? We should be reminded about the economic policies of the Liberal government some 30 years ago, were increased taxes, increased debt, increased bailouts. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, it took subsequent governments 30 years, yes, 30 years, to recover from that reckless spending of 30 years ago. Why is the current government then repeating the same policies of some 30 years ago? Well, it took a generation to recover that. And we look back into history, it was our previous government that actually restored the pay increase to the middle class by an average of $5,000 per year. Now, those living in Ontario appear to be far more pessimistic than the rest of the country as a whole, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised about that because it too is a Liberal government in Ontario, and like this one in Ottawa, they just love to spend, 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 which means taxes eventually, maybe not right away, Mr. Speaker, but you will have to pay for it down the road. You know, it has been especially a dark summer in my province of Saskatchewan. We've had many layoffs. We've had many shutdowns. We've had many takeovers that have donned the headlines of our major papers in the province of Saskatchewan. Mitsubishi Hibachi, the power system, laid off some 150 Saskatoon employees in July. The company later said they're simply going to close the plant permanently and sell off all the assets. In the same month of July, workers at Mosaic's Kolonzi potash mine were told that the entire mine would be shut down until January 3rd of 2017. The company said, Mosaic said, they hope to call back workers, but there is absolutely no guarantee. I should add, Mr. Speaker, late July I drove by that mine in Kolonzi, once hosting well over 300 stalls for parking. There was 5 vehicles in the parking lot when I went by. It has affected the entire area, as business surrounding the Kolonzi mine have been hit hard with the shutdown of that mine. Many are forced to cut hours or simply lay off staff because of their shutdown. The entire potash industry right now in this country is nervous with the possible merger of Potash Corp and Agrium announced earlier this month. Vecima, another company in Saskatoon, announced massive layoffs in Saskatoon in July, and the decline in the construction industry has hit our province especially hard. The largest decline in construction employment was in the Saskatoon metropolitan area, where the employment 3 months ending in August of 2016 was 3,200 lower than it was the year before. There was 42,000 unemployed in the province of Saskatchewan during August. That is an increase of 3,400 from the month before and 5,200 more than the number unemployed in August of 2015. EI recipients jumped 19% alone in the month of June. I will quote Doug Elliott, who is the publisher of SAS Trends Monitor. He quoted saying that people were unable to find work, have just simply stopped looking entirely. Now let's think about this, Mr. Speaker. The incentive to work among the current unemployment ranks is lost in this country. Now we hear the government will move forward on their carbon tax. Like it or not, we're going to have a carbon tax in this country. There's no agreement at all from the Vancouver meetings that they held in March. Actually, we missed the September 2nd deadline, and now, like it or not, we're going to have a carbon tax because we were promised one. What happened to the collaboration that was promised by this government almost a year ago? Employers are feeling the pressure in oil and gas producing provinces like mine in Saskatchewan, along with Alberta and Newfoundland. This budget did nothing to improve their situation at all. Once considered the backbone of Canadian economy, these provinces were left to fend for themselves with this current federal Liberal government. I might add, Mr. Speaker, changes coming to the CPP will add more costs to businesses at a time when they're scrambling in this weak economy. Yet this federal government shows no mercy for business and the middle class. According to a new Ipsos survey conducted on behalf of the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, 8 in 10 want the government to consult with the public before going ahead with their CPP expansion plans. So if the CPP reforms mean that businesses freeze or even cut wages, then employees will simply oppose these reforms. Working Canadians don't support changes to the CPP if it has consequence of freezing or even diminishing their salaries at all. This makes sense, as we all know right now in this economy, Canadians are feeling the pinch. Just today, the Finance Minister confirmed the economy will create 1,050 fewer jobs per year, Mr. Speaker, over 10 years than it would have been in case without the higher premiums. Well, changes to the Income Tax Act was and continues to be a major concern for entrepreneurs and professionals coast to coast. These are the people that are driving our economy. Our previous Conservative government left the current government, we know, with a surplus. In the last 94 days alone, this federal Liberal government has gone through nearly $8 billion of announcements, and plus $1.3 billion spent outside this country. Our previous Conservative government believed people needed to save for the future. The popular TFSAs were there for emergencies. This was visionary, Mr. Speaker, as it promoted families to save for the future. And in times of uncertainty like right now, they could withdraw those TFSAs. In times of prosperity, they could save for the future. Exactly. And by saving now, it took the burden off federal government in future years that it could be used to redirect the money to other needed programs. This summer, Mr. Speaker, I knocked hundreds of doors in my riding of Saskatoon-Grasswood. We did a number of barbecues. I was constantly told how disappointed they are in this Liberal government. Many professionals said they're going to simply cut back their hours. Instead of serving the public like they do now for 6 and 7 days a week, they will simply cut back their hours to 3 or 4 days a week. The incentive is gone, Mr. Speaker, and that will make us all pay dearly in the end. Thank you.
Hear, hear.